I mean, there were certainly instances where he showed flashes of playing the quarterback position with the subtlety and nuance that you're looking for. Comfortable drop, comfortable set, held the ball with good ball carriage. By that we mean he held it in the right spot as he dropped ready to deliver the ball, where he stepped to his throw, where he threw with timing and anticipation, where he showed some pace and touch, where he didn't move within the pocket, resetting his platform, kept his eyes downfield, showed good ball placement. There were numerous examples of that. And there was no question he got better as the season progressed. Now, having said that,
man, I'm loving our new commercials too. On top of everything else, welcome back in.
New football season, new commercials, man.
Oh, the excitement is palpable. Yes, welcome back in, everybody. Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Derek Gunn, Rob Ellis Barrett off today. Thrilled to be joined by our first guest of the day. First time on the show. He is an executive producer analyst for the NFL Matchup with Matt Bowen and Sal Palantonio. He's also been a producer for 42 years at NFL Films, and he's the co-author of the book, The Games That Changed the Game. Greg Cosell, what's happening, Greg?
Gentlemen, what's happening? I didn't know I was going to be with you guys. I mean, I would have looked, a little more decent. All of that's hard for me, but
you look great.
Then again, I'm looking at you guys, so well, what can you say?
Your Zoom just collapsed. It just went down, Greg. Now, are you in the lab right now? Or are you? Where are you? Are you breaking?
I'm in my office at NFL Films. I've been, it's as you guys probably aware, it's almost football season, so
man.
I've been working a little bit,
Do you ever go home? Do you ever sleep?
Well, I'll give you an example that I worked, at least some hours every day this weekend, but I did get a ton of college football watching in because you have to,
Yes.
Wow.
And it didn't disappoint. That's for sure, Greg. So obviously we're excited. As you still get the butterflies even after doing it for all these years with the first week coming up here.
No, I wouldn't say it's butterflies, but what we do know about the first week of the NFL season is there's probably going to be 3 or 4 games that end up being totally different than what we think today. And we don't know which 3 or 4 games those are going to be. But what we do know is everybody will make bold, definitive statements about those teams' season after one game.
That's correct. They do it before the game and then after the games. And they could be polar opposites.
We do know that. So, like for instance, let's say the Buffalo Bills lose on Thursday night and Josh Allen doesn't have a great game. You know what everybody's going to say right off the bat. Oh, Josh, too much hype on Josh Allen. He's no good. We know how all this works.
Yes, we do. For sure, especially in a town like Philadelphia. So let's start with that, Greg. I want to go specifically with Jalen Hurts because obviously every road seems to lead back there when we have these discussions, as you well know. But I think you're a great person to talk to about this because you're one who studies the mechanics of that position in a very deep way. So let's start with that. From what you saw last year in terms of improvement, also with what his shortcomings are to an extent, how much better, in your estimation, can he be, and do you think he will be?
Well, I did a deep dive on Hurts this summer. I probably watched, which I can't do during the season because I have to try to watch doing the matchup show pretty much every game that I can. I obviously can't get through 16 games every week. There's just not that many hours in the day, and the way I study it takes time. So what I did is this summer, with a number of different players, but certainly with Hurts, I watched about 350 dropbacks in a row over the course of 2-3 days. Wow. So, different situations, the whole deal. So, I feel like I have a pretty good sense of what Hurts was in 2021. And I thought that it was, as we all know, I thought there were ups and there were downs. I mean, there were certainly instances where he showed flashes of playing the quarterback position with the subtlety and nuance that you're looking for. Comfortable drop, comfortable set, held the ball with good ball carriage. By that we mean he held it in the right spot as he dropped ready to deliver the ball, where he stepped to his throw, where he threw with timing and anticipation, where he showed some pace and touch, where he didn't move within the pocket, resetting his platform, kept his eyes downfield, showed good ball placement. There were numerous examples of that. And there was no question he got better as the season progressed. Now, having said that, obviously we know that at this point in his career, after one full season as starter, you wouldn't call him a great quarterback. So what are the concerns that showed up on tape. One of the main concerns was that he tended to perceive and feel pressure that was not there by NFL standards. So when that happens, what did he do? He relied on what he knows he's good at. He left the pocket. And two things can happen when you leave the pocket. One is negative. One can be positive. The negative is the fact that the term we use is you leave throws on the field, where the route concept works against the coverage. The primary is open. The ball needs to be delivered, and it should be delivered. And by the way, with all the analytics, there's no metric yet for balls that aren't thrown that should be thrown.
Okay.
And that's where the tape study comes in. So that was something that he had a continuing problem with throughout the season, and that he needs to continue to work on. Now, the positive of him moving is that we know at times he can make really special plays with his legs. It's just that those plays tend to be more random, and that's not the way the game is coached. You guys know, Derek, not to knock you, Rob, but Derek, I feel like Derek's been doing this for about 100 years. But
you might be right. You might be right.
It's actually 99.
But Derek, you know that the way the quarterback position is coached, no coach rolls the ball out and says, let's run around today and make some plays and see what happens. So you're trying to increase the instances in which he plays within the structure, the timing and rhythm of the offense. And I think the Eagles coaching staff actually does a very good job with that. See, what people have to understand is Jalen is a young quarterback who's had numerous offensive coordinators and numerous offenses even at this young stage of his career, starting in high school, Alabama, Oklahoma, Eagles with Doug Peterson, Eagles with Sirianni. So he has to continue to learn new things. That takes time. It's a process. So you try to help him. So what do? You work half the field. You give him half field reads. A great example, and it's preseason, but that's irrelevant because it's a concept. The touchdown he threw to Dallas Goedert in the preseason was a route concept that they run all the time. It's what we call flood. It's a 3-level stretch. They happen to run that to the boundary. A lot of teams run it to the field, including the Eagles. It's a basic read. In relative terms, it's a simple read for the quarterback. So those are the kinds of things you try to do. You get him comfortable in the pocket. It's all about functional knowledge. No quarterback is ever asked or can read 11 defenders. It's not humanly possible. So you try to minimize the number of players that he has to read within a given route concept versus a specific coverage.
Greg, I'm glad you brought that up about Jalen maybe being a little bit skittish in the pocket. And when you started talking about that, I'm thinking of two quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Both of them still, to me, sometimes take off too soon. They're a little skittish about letting the play develop. Trust your guys in front of you. Trust the play call. Is that a trait you can ever truly delete from a quarterback's arsenal when they've relied on that so much?
That is a great question, Derek. And I think it's probably quarterback specific. Lamar Jackson is a little different case only because they built an entire offense. Certainly early in his career, we don't know what they've done this offseason. They built an entire offense around his running. That was the foundation of the offense. So that was a unique situation. You don't usually see that, or I can't recall seeing that in the recent NFL. Kyler Murray's also different because he's 5'10", and there's just certain things he can't see. As great, for instance, as Russell Wilson is, I had a great conversation with one of his former coaches who said it's very difficult to run a pass-first offense with Russell the way we think of, let's say, Tom Brady, because there are certain routine throws that he can't see. So, when you're dealing with 5'10" guys, I think it's a little different scenario. But to respond to your question, I think that's probably difficult. I think you try to work through it, and you try with your route concepts. And now this is where coaching comes in. And I'm a big believer in coaching. Maybe it's because of the people I've been fortunate and grateful in my career to have learned from, people a lot smarter than I am. But I think that with coaching, you try to help your quarterback so it's defined, it's clear, and he's confident not only in the route concepts, but in the defense that he's seeing, because everything in the NFL is probability and tendency. Nothing is 100%. So you try to deal with, hey, we're calling this concept on 1st and 10 because we know that the defense we're playing against, they run 2 or 3 coverages on 1st and 10, and this route concept takes care of all of that. You try to do that so the quarterback feels comfortable hitting that back foot and turning it loose. Obviously 3rd down is a whole different animal. And then you walk that fine line, and I'm not a coach, so I don't profess to know the answer to this, Derek. You walk that fine line of quarterbacks that can move and move well like Jalen. You don't want to take that away from them. You don't want to say to him, never run. But on the other hand, you don't want him to leave defined throws on the field for big explosive gains.
Greg, let me ask you, and this is sort of along the lines of what we're talking about here. I know certain guys have burst on the scene. Burrow did, Justin Herbert of late, and we're just unbelievable. How much of this is a byproduct of, hey, he's 24. He's been in different systems quite a bit in his young career. And there's got to be a learning curve. There's got to be some growth that's built in before you make an evaluation. I don't mean you. I'm just saying that before people, make an evaluation. How much of that do you see with the possibility this year where there's that growth step?
I would expect Jalen to be better for any number of reasons. We can get into those in a moment. One is simply experience. 2nd year in a system, which I think has not been the case for him in recent vintage. Now, keep one thing in mind. Jalen is not a natural thrower in the same way that the 2 quarterbacks you mentioned are. It's not that he's a poor thrower, but Jalen is not just an easy, natural thrower. Herbert's a different cat, and Burrow is just totally smooth. Those guys are at a different level of just natural throwing ability than Jalen Hurts, which, of course, doesn't mean Jalen can't become a very good quarterback. Not every quarterback is just beautiful to watch. That's just the way it is in any sport. So I think with Jalen, it's a combination of being in a system, feeling comfortable, having the coaching staff help him. Look, what you're going to see a lot of this year, which will help him a lot with A.J. Brown, who was phenomenal working inside. We saw this when he was in Tennessee. You're going to see a ton of RPO concepts. You're going to see a ton of quick game. You're going to see a ton of things that ideally influence second-level defenders so those throws are easily defined and you get the ball in the hands of an A.J. Brown who run after catch is top 5 in this league. And we saw that in Tennessee. How many times did he catch those sort of slant routes, glance routes, and then add a run after catch for a big play? So you're going to try to take advantage of that. Those are the things you try to do to help Jalen Hurts as he grows more comfortable within the context of your offense. As I said, the big issues become in long yardage situations. When it's 3rd and 9, you can't rely on him running for 12 yards. That can't be the way you think about offense. Now, will it happen? Of course it will. And we'll see those plays on SportsCenter or wherever we see them. But you won't see the plays where it didn't happen. And that's the thing. There are those plays as well. So you obviously are trying to design things where he can drop back even against defenses that have a tactical advantage, which they normally do on 3rd and long, where he can feel comfortable with the route concept. And, hey, I know that I can get the ball here. I know what my blitz alerts are. I know that I might see some disguise, but through film study, I know what that might be. You're trying to get it so that he's not dropping back in a way where it's random, where he drops back and, I'm going to run now. You don't want that to be the thought process.
Hey, Greg, as Howie has reshaped this team during this offseason, the hype train has continued to just blow up. We talk about it every day, all summer long. Our chat room has talked about it all summer. Have you allowed yourself to get a part of this hype train, or are you one of those guys that say, wait and see?
Derek, I'm a little jaded. I've been doing this. This will be my 43rd season.
Greg doesn't strike me as a hype train guy.
I don't know. That's why I had to ask him.
I don't see him conducting the hype train. I don't
he's still a football fan, though.
I've seen a few things, but I will say this. I think the Eagles have a really good roster, really good roster. And I mean, it's the best roster in their division. It's probably a top 5 or 6 roster across the league. Now, again, having said that, does that mean they're going to end up 14-3? No one knows the answer to those questions. There's going to be injuries. There are going to be guys who perform above expectations. There'll be guys who probably perform below expectations. We don't know that. I mean, we just spoke about Jalen Hurts. Obviously, the focus will be on him. I'm fascinated, by the way, guys, to see what this defense will look like, because I know last year a lot of people were down on Jonathan Gannon, but he's an incredibly smart guy. Yeah. I think what you're going to see so much more of this year is the Vic Fangio influence. You're seeing that throughout the league, by the way. More and more teams playing what we call quarter structure to start, 4 across, because you can do so many more things from that starting point than if you have a defined free safety and a box safety. And I think now that they've got Gardner Johnson, who, and I'm not saying this because he's on the Eagles, Gardner Johnson is a really good football player. And I think he's going to help that secondary tremendously. He can play, look, he played safety his first 2 years at Florida. That's what he'll play with the Eagles. But because it's going to be a quarter structure, what quarters is, without getting too deep into the weeds, is a matchup zone concept. So there's a lot of matchup principles in quarters coverage. So he's going to match up to receivers. That's going to happen.
Wow.
So, Greg, they're going to be multiple a lot, if at least it appears that way.
They will be.
Yeah, from a front standpoint. Is that a concern? Is that a lot to throw on these guys? Is a lot on a coordinator? I'm with you. I believe in Jonathan Gannon. So let me just state that right out of the chute.
I'm waiting to see. For the record, I'm still waiting.
Derek's kind of on the side, just seeing what's going to happen here. But with the talent that they have, with the diversity that they have, do you think this is going to be a very effective defense?
I think it'll be clearly better. I think that, to be honest with you, I think last year, and I don't think he would ever state this publicly, nor should he, I'm giving you my opinion based on film study. I think last year he played to try to hide some concerns and some weaknesses, and the result of that was twofold. Number one, they didn't give up many big plays, by the way, but number two, they gave up a lot of completions. So you got to pick your poison there. You know, if they started giving up big plays, the fans would be on them for giving up big plays. But because they gave up an S-load of completions, they were on them for that, because there were quarterbacks that were not considered great quarterbacks that were, completing 75-80% of their passes.
Derek Carr, 91.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. So, I mean, look, the last thing defensive coordinators want to give up in this league are big explosive plays. So I think he played last year to minimize that and feel like that was the best way to keep things together. Now that they have better people, I'm very anxious to see how that changes, because it will change. Now, you talk, Rob, about the multiple fronts. We will see that. The question is, if you want to play a lot of 5-man fronts, that obviously loses a body in coverage, because football at its core is a numbers game and a space game. So now you have to decide how you want to play that on your back end. If you feel not only in your base you want to play with 5 across, which they will with a 5-man front, but even in nickel at times, we saw them last year play with a 5-man front and rush 5. So that impacts your coverage because you lose a body in coverage.
Wow. See, that's why I got him on, Robbie. I love his analysis.
Listen, I could listen to this for. Greg, are you available for like the next 24 hours?
I am, but I'll be happy to give you my routing number and account number.
There you go. There you go. Hey, Greg, this is an Eagles team, and as you know, being in one of the more critical markets in all of pro football, this is it's like a family. They'll back you, and they'll fight with anybody who talks about you. I've said Jalen Hurts has the mental makeup, and I think that's the most important aspect, to handle this market based on what we've seen him in terms of when he's gotten in front of the media to discuss some of the things that have been said about him. I think in a lot of ways that's more important than a physical makeup, first and foremost, of how to handle fan-based media market like Philadelphia. And I think he's mastered that already at a young age.
Well, and I think there's another factor, Derek, from everything I've heard, because I've gotten to know some of the coaches. Is he wants to be coached hard, and I think that's absolutely critical. Like I said, I'm a big believer in it. the thing I'm most grateful about in my career, which really led me on my way to whatever it is that I am now. I'm sure many people have different opinions on that. But I was fortunate to be taught in detail the quarterback position by Bill Walsh. I knew Bill Walsh well. So, I start there. When I think about the quarterback position, I think about playing it perfectly, as most coaches should think about it. They know it doesn't happen that way, but that's the way it should be coached. Obviously defenses, in this league, there's a lot of smart coaches, contrary to what fans might think at times. These guys work and work and work and work. They live this. I mean, that's the bottom line. So when you talk about a quarterback, you need to be coached, you need to be receptive to coaching, and you need to be accountable. There's nothing worse than quarterbacks that never say it's my fault. That just tears a team apart. Yep. Jalen Hurts is not that guy. So I think that Jalen Hurts mentally, as you said, Derek, is starting from a good point. The question becomes, some of the things we spoke about, can he reach that level where he's playing at a high level of efficiency within the structure week after week after week, and going even deeper, snap after snap after snap?
Okay.
Greg, I'd love to have you dispel some critiques or criticisms we hear of him. One, he doesn't have a strong enough arm for the NFL. True or false?
I would say as an absolute, it's false. His arm is not, it's not a power arm. He does not have one of the stronger arms in the league, but I don't think it's a severe limitation. Now, I am a believer in arm strength, so I do want you guys to know that. I think there are throws in important games. It doesn't necessarily happen. Look, the way they played last year down the stretch, there were a lot of games where he didn't need to make those special throws. But I think that when you're playing really good teams and you're going to where you want to get to, there are going to be throws in games that you need to drive the football with velocity. Can he do that? I don't think he can do it 10 times a game. Can he do it a couple of times? Probably. But there's no question you would not put Jalen Hurts' arm among the more elite arm talents. And I know that's a cliche these days, but you wouldn't put him in that category. But it's strong enough to be a quality NFL quarterback.
Let me hit you with one more. I'm going to use a basketball term, the mid-range game. Some of the throws over the middle that aren't necessarily deep shots, but aren't 5-yard outs either, is a bit of a struggle for him. Is that what you found in your film work?
Yes, because those are pace and touch throws, and those are different than arm strength throws, and those kinds of throws often can separate quarterbacks, because while I said might be a few throws in a game that really require you to muscle it up and drive the football with velocity, more throws have to do with pace and touch, firm touch, taking something off the ball, laying it out there. There are more throws like that. That is an area where Jalen Hurts does need work, because he does at times can have a delivery that's a little bit elongated. And sometimes when your delivery is a little bit elongated and there's more motion, it's a little tougher to control the ball. The guys that have the quicker, compact deliveries, a Joe Burrow, for instance, has a very quick, compact delivery. They can control the ball a little better. Now, what I just said is not universal. If someone's listening, they might say, oh, well, so-and-so has a bit of a long delivery and he has great ball placement. Nothing's 100%. It's just it's just more often than not. The more motion you have in anything, the more difficult it is to control it.
Hey, Greg, outside of the quarterback, give me one player on each side of the ball for the Eagles that you will watch extremely close this season in terms of being intrigued by how productive they can be within the structure of this system.
Well, can I give you two guys on offense?
Sure.
Dallas Goedert, who I think talent-wise is a top 5 tight end in this league. And the other player who fascinates me to see how he'll be deployed, knowing that Miles Sanders seems to, get nicked up a lot, is Kenny Gainwell. Because I think Kenny Gainwell is a terrific receiver. When I watched him in Memphis in the last year he played, because he sat out the COVID year, he ran routes like a wideout. And I think that you need to take advantage of that. So I'm very curious to see him. On the defensive side of the ball, I would say White, the linebacker who they signed,
Cosell White, okay,
is a fascinating guy to me because he was a safety at West Virginia, as you guys probably know. He's while you wouldn't call him one of the 5 or 6 best linebackers in the league, I think his skill set is still complete. It's not high level in the way we talk about the Darius Leonards or the Fred Warners or the Demario Davises, and I'm missing a few guys, obviously, that I just can't think of right now. He's not at that level of player, but I think his ability to play all 3 downs fits that. So I'm very anxious to see, because that's a position, as you guys know, that obviously needed to be upgraded this offseason.
Greg, do you see Jordan Davis having a major impact, slight impact, not buying it this year? What category would he fall into?
I would say that will depend on one thing, Rob: how much base they play versus how much sub. Because, I know last year when I evaluated Davis, and I got ripped by a lot of people who told me I didn't understand defense. But Davis only played about 22 snaps a game for Georgia last year. And that obviously is not a concern for the Eagles, or they wouldn't have traded up to draft him. Right. And we all hope he becomes a great player. But the question is, he was not used on 3rd down at Georgia. He was not used in passing situations at Georgia. The argument, of course, I kept getting was, well, they had good players. Well, we're in the NFL now. There's pretty good players in the NFL too. So, I'm just curious. I think that Davis has unique traits for his size. I think his strength is remarkable. I made a distinction, which a lot of people rip me for, but I thought the film showed that. Now, there are always exceptions. That's the thing. So you can always point out, cherry pick a play and say, aha, look, he did that. You could do that with anybody. You could pick out the 25 best plays of any player and say, this guy should be in the Hall of Fame,
right.
But I think that he's incredibly strong. I thought that he wasn't as powerful as he was strong. And the definition of power to me would be strength in motion. So I think that there were examples of it without question, but I think that they're probably working with him on that. So I don't know if right now, Rob, the Eagles see him as a player that's going to be on the field on 3rd down in your sub fronts. Now, if it's 1st and 10, he could be in a sub front, because obviously most teams in the NFL play a ton of 11 personnel with 3 wide receivers, and they do that on 1st down. So he could certainly be on the field then. But is he going to be on the field on 3rd and 9? My guess is certainly early in the season, you'll not see that.
Okay.
All right, last one from me, Greg. From what you saw of Nick Sirianni last year, and it was a year they start off 2-5, they get it together, they end up being in the playoffs, much to a lot of people's surprise. What's your sense of him as a coach? Do you feel good about him going forward?
Yeah, I thought he did a great job last year, because I thought he started the year with the idea that I need to find out if Jalen Hurts can toss it around the yard and if we can build our offense around the quarterback. And I think he found out that at that point in Jalen's career, you could not. And he made that change. Now, whether that change was in the bag from preseason or he made it midseason, he made the absolute right adjustment. They became a running football team. They played to Jalen's strengths as they were a year ago. And that, to me, is coaching. You play to what you have. Look, Nick Sirianni's background, he wants to throw the ball. And by what they've done this offseason, we know that they understand they're not getting to or winning a Super Bowl playing the way they did the last 7 or 8 games last year. Yes, they're going to run the ball. They're going to rely on Jalen's running ability, structured running ability, design running ability within the context of the offense. But to be a great offense in this league right now and to win playoff games and get to a Super Bowl, you have to throw the football. Not only proactively when it's 1st and 10, but you have to be able to throw it when the defense has the tactical advantage. And I think they understand that. That's why they went out and got A.J. Brown. I think that's what they're working toward with Jalen. Keep in mind, they have 3 receivers right now that can win one-on-one. And in this league, what does everybody talk about? Matchups. They have Brown, Smith, and Goddard. They can win one-on-one matchups. And don't lose sight of that fact. That's going to be very important because defenses play man. The Dallas Cowboys last year played more man coverage than any team in the NFL. So they're going to face man coverage, and they have 3 receivers that can win.
Greg, I have two quick questions for you. One of which is, do you think the Eagles are that much better than the Cowboys on paper right now?
Meaningfully better, yes. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, that much is one of those, they're better than the Cowboys. Yes, their roster is better.
Okay. Secondly, your thoughts on 40-year-old Jason Peters signing with the Cowboys? How many offensive linemen play at the age of 40?
Well, I mean, I don't think Jason over the last, year or so has been obviously what he was when he was, a Hall of Fame left tackle, but he obviously still wants to play. Look, they're looking for a left tackle, so they signed him. I mean, it's hard for me to say what he might be this year until I see him on tape, but they didn't sign him to sit on the bench. Whether he plays this week against the Bucs, that's none of us know that, but he's going to be their left tackle sooner than later.
Okay.
Greg, very illuminating stuff, man. It was awesome to be able to catch up, to have you on. And we look forward to checking out your work. Again, executive producer, analyst, NFL Matchup with Matt Bowen and Sal Powell, senior producer at NFL Films for 42 years, and the author, co-author of the games. Yeah, the games that changed. Yeah, that is 42. I mean, do you ever say to yourself, I've been there for 42? Like, how does that even?
Well, it hit me when actually, guys, real quick story, when the year before the pandemic, when I was out at Eagles camp and Peter King happened to be out at training camp that day. And that was my 40th year, I believe. And he said to me, are you aware that you've been part of the NFL for 40% of its existence?
Wow.
And until he said that to me, I was like, wow, yeah, no, I guess I really hadn't thought of it that way.
Pretty good, though. Pretty good to soak that in, man.
Yeah.
Greg, listen, thanks for the time, man. We'll let you get
G.
back to your work, but we appreciate catching up with you. Thank you.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much.
All right, you got it.
care,
Greg Cosell. I'm telling you, Derek, there are certain people that will say, I watched the film. And you're like, sure you did.
Yeah.
This guy, he's like Baldy in the sense that they live it. They love it. They
absorb it.
They have cots over there. They sleep over there at NFL Films headquarters watching film on these guys. I thought that was really cool insight there on Jalen Hurts. So let's kind of soak all that in. We'll talk about it a little bit when we get back, and we'll dig into this game that they played against Detroit last year too, Derek, when we return. 2:00, Mike Missinelli's going to join us. We're going to go around the NFL. We'll get all kinds of NFL stuff in store for you also. You don't want to go anywhere, man. It is football week. Yes, we are actually, what time is it? We are now 5 days away. Yeah. Exactly. We're now 120 hours, Derek, but who's counting, from the Eagles and the Lions? He's Derek Gunn. I'm Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Let's talk a little Pro Action Restoration. Yeah, Pro Action Restoration is the place that you want to call or reach out to if your home or your business or a property you own may experience any kind of inconvenience due to a water issues, fire, smoke, mold damage, whatever. A day like this, like we're having in Philadelphia, there are people that are bound to have problems in their home or in their business. And if you got some flooding, it's the worst. I've gone through it. I went through it at my parents' house. I reached out to Pro Action. They got right over there. They cleaned it up. The crew was professional, and the price was very reasonable. Just reach out to them. They're licensed, bonded, fully insured. They've been serving the tri-state area for more than 2 decades. Pro Action will work in conjunction with your insurance company as well. Again, it could be water, it could be fire, it could be smoke, could be mold remediation. You name it, they will handle it. Give them a call, 610-623-3760, 610-623-3760, or you can reach out to them online at proactionrestoration.com. That's proactionrestoration.com.